If you're a director who's thinking about shutting his limited company and the thing that's on your lips is, what is this going to cost me to liquidate? I want you to be really careful, because if you're asking the wrong questions up front, you could be missing something huge that could cost you a fortune. I was approached by a director a few months ago, okay? His leading question was, Chris, I just need the cost to what it's going to cost me to liquidate the business. He'd already spoke to another firm. They were quoting £4,000 plus VAT. We were quoting £5,000. Now, I told him, I said, listen, just be careful for a second, because the other firm had completely missed a £93,000 intercompany loan that he was going to have to pay back. So I just said, listen, hold your horses. Before I give you a quote what this is going to cost, I need to look at everything. And we focused, he was focusing just on the fee. So I had to shift the conversation to what is the risk. Because this was not about saving £1,000. It was about educating him about what this is all going to cost him if he makes the decision. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened, how we uncovered the risk, and why understanding the full picture, not just the cost, can be the difference between walking away clean, getting wiped out, and getting ready for what's about to come down the road. So, Chris Worden, Director First, welcome to the channel. Okay, I want to talk to you about this business, okay? This director had two companies. He had a trading company, and he also had a company that owned the factory that they traded out of, okay? It's important that we're going to come to it in a little bit. So this guy, he's rang us up, and obviously we say, like on every call, right, what's going on? Let's start with, what do you owe out? What have you got coming in? So, HMRC 150 grand, bounce back loan 19 grand. DLA 10 grand. This means the company owed him 10 grand. He owed suppliers 25 grand. And he just had this. And this is the thing that had wiped him out. He actually had a dispute with a customer. It had gone all the way to court, and he couldn't believe it. The court had made a judgment that he owed £100,000. He was completely blindsided to this. So, once we went through everything, I'll just go through here. There was not really much physical assets that the business owned. It was all leased. There was very little cash at the bank, minimum, okay? And debtors was owed in about 20k, okay? So as you can see, the business is insolvent. The business is insolvent because it cannot pay its debts when they fall due. So, where was the pressure coming from? Well, it'd been getting a little bit hairy with the HMRC over the past 6 months, okay? This was made up of corporation tax, VAT and PAYE. Now, there'd been a general downturn in his trade. This business had been going for 20 years, mind, and he just hadn't been paying the HMRC on time. He'd been communicating with them, but it was getting to the point now, what their next action is they're going to wind this business up, okay? He owed a bounce back loan. So obviously we've got to dive in and we've got to look at that and go, right, did you take the right amount? Did you take 25% of turnover in 2019? Yes. Okay, what did you spend it on? We checked what this guy spent it on, and it was genuine, just running the business, trading through. The company, this was in his last set of accounts, by the way, which were a year out of date. They owed him £10,000. And I prepared him. I says, you're not going to get that £10,000 back. Can I just check, how have you been taking your salary since this? And this guy was taking £4,000 a month through the payroll, okay? And he had been doing for some time. So therefore, if he's been taking the money through the payroll, he's not been taking any dividends, this director's loan account is going to stay the same. The company still owes him 10 grand. Now, he's not going to be able to take that out of the company if he goes through insolvency. And if he does, it's a preference payment. he owed suppliers 25 grand. And he really wanted to pay these suppliers because his intention was he wanted to start again. He just wanted to downscale significantly and basically go from having quite a few staff to just him and his lad doing it, okay? So he really wanted to pay his suppliers, but I've said, listen, you can't pay your suppliers at this stage because if you do, it's going to be seen as a preference payment. Now, if he'd have paid his suppliers the 25 grand and it would have brought in 40 grand into the liquidation, then he could have done that because it's in the interest of creditors. But just paying his suppliers at this stage, because he doesn't want to upset them, it would be seen as a preference payment and it could cause him some issues personally. So what he decided to do on this one is to speak to his suppliers, to let them know what was going on beforehand. They're still going to receive notice that this guy's going into liquidation, but he's going to pay them in the new company. And all of his suppliers, I don't know if they were happy with that, but they certainly accepted it. And this is the thing that crippled the business. It came out of nowhere, 100 grand judgment that he wasn't expecting. Okay, so that is the creditor side of things. Let's have a look at this. There was a little bit of cash, minimal cash at the bank. It was going to get swallowed up with wages. They were owed in about 20 grand from jobs. Here's the problem that he'd had, and he'd already spoken to another firm and they quoted 4 grand plus VAT. So he's obviously gone in, what's the cost to liquidate? And their answer was 4 grand plus VAT, okay? Now I get a bit of heat off this. I get a bit of heat on LinkedIn about it. And do you know what? I don't care because I really am passionate for what I'm about to tell you now. This other firm knew, like I knew, the minute that I looked at the company's balance sheet, and the balance sheet was up to date, okay? They had a bookkeeper, they pulled me off QuickBooks, and I've said, wait there, there's an intercompany, there's a debtor here for 93 grand off a connected company. Tell me a little bit more about that. And his actual reaction was, okay, no, my accountant said it's okay, he's just going to write it off. Right. I said, I'm not sure it's that simple. So I spoke to the accountant. By the way, I've not been paid for this at this stage. I'm doing it at risk, okay? I'm doing it because I wanted this director to know exactly what this was going to cost him, right? And I've got into it and I've said, right, I spoke to the accountant. I said, what's this debtor? He says, well, this company lent money to the property company years ago to fund the purchase. I'm like, right, okay. I says, well, he's talking about that you're just going to write it off. And he says, well, he's asking me to do that. And says, the problem you've got, if you just write this off, the insolvency practitioner can look at it and go, well, nothing's actually happened here. The property company still owes the money, right? So I've gone back to the director with the bad news and he says, well, actually what the deal was is we lent this money, the property company, the 93,000 years ago, but what was meant to happen was we was meant to be there rent free, okay? And that was meant to pay off the loan over a period of years. I says, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. So I've gone back to the accountant. It's never been put in the accounts that. I've then spoke to one of the insolvency practitioners and he says, Chris, the problem that you've got is if it's not ever been registered in the accounts that this figure has gone down, we can't accept that story, okay? In their view, the 93,000 is still owed. This is a big problem. It was a heck of a shock to the guy because that building that they had was owned outright and it was worth a few £100,000. So what he said to me, he said, so what you're saying to me, Chris, is this is going to cost, it might cost me 4 grand to, well, with us it's 5 grand, it were a 5 grand job, but you're going to ask me to pay the 93 grand back. I says, yeah. And here's the worst thing, sir, is you're going to have to. Because if your property company doesn't pay the 93 grand back, the insolvency practitioner has to take legal action against you, and they will wind that company up and they will get that money back. He's like, oh, so what we're going to do? So what we did is, before we made the decision, by the way, okay, this happened in a matter of days, okay, because I got called out the other week about, well, you need to be acting in the best interest of creditors and getting this into insolvency straight away. Guess what? 3 days wasn't going to make a difference. So what we did is we had a look at what the property company had actually paid back into the trading company since this last set of accounts, because the trading company was on its arse. So we found out that it had paid back 53,000 quid. It hadn't taken any more over. So the balance was 40,000, okay? And what I did is, in principle, remember, this is dead important, in principle, I spoke to the insolvency practitioner and said, this is the situation, these are our workings out, you will find this when you get appointed. What is the longest you can stretch for the property company to pay you back this money? And they said we can accept it over 10 months. Right. So this £5 liquidation has now shot up to £45,000 that it's in a roundabout way going to cost this director. So he can afford to pay the £4 a month over 10 months. And what's the moral of the story here? By the way, the staff were made redundant. The staff were made redundant when the business was liquidated, okay? The moral of the story is someone may challenge me and go, well, Chris, that was going to happen anyway. What I'm saying to you is, what I've done, my service has give this guy a bit of a fright up front, okay? I saw his face when I told him what this is actually probably going to cost him, and it went white. But what I've done is I've saved him a lot of headache and a lot of frustration and a lot of toing and froing. Because I'll tell you how this was going to plan out if he'd have gone with the first firm. They've said to him, he said to them, what's it going to cost me? £4 plus VAT to liquidate. They have not lied. They've not done anything dishonest there, okay? They've answered the question. Now, from a regulatory point of view, they're not allowed to, well, I've been told they're not allowed to do too much pre-appointment work up front, okay? But for me, he was going to go into liquidation at £4 plus VAT. He would have got appointed the liquidator. The liquidator was then going to write to him for 93,000 quid. Now, would they have already got to the 40 grand settlement? Probably. How much stress would that 93 grand have caused him out of the blue because he thinks it's gone away? Directors, it's important that you understand everything, okay? And there are ways, as long as you move fast, as long as you do this quickly, this pre-appointment work quickly, you can understand the full picture before you sign up. Now remember, an insolvency practitioner they're not duty bound, they're not allowed to make decisions before you appoint them. But what they can do is give you a guide, they can give you sort of some in principle ideas. And if you work with us at Director First, that's exactly what we're going to do with you. We're going to help you, we're going to hold your hand, we're going to get all the crap out on the table, we're going to tell you where the risk is, and we're going to help you overcome risk. We can't sweep stuff away, but with us, you will understand up front what you're getting into. So, if you found the video useful, if I've pricked your conscience and you want some information on your situation, I want you to go and click on the assessment below. It's in the description. One of my team is going to get in touch with you, okay? Now, if you want to find out more about the things you must do before you appoint an insolvency practitioner, I want you to go and click on this video right now. And I want you to go and watch about the important things you must do before you make a decision to go into insolvency. Chris Worden, Director First, thanks for your time.